Good morning and Happy New Year. Thank you for watching Sunday Kickoff presented by Grand Lighthouse Coffee. Make sure you go to grandlighthousecoffee.com and use promo code EastWest when you order to get 10% off your purchase. And also Grand Leyenda Tequila. Make sure you go to grandleyenda.com for more information. Grand Leyenda, the official tequila of the East West Football Network. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone?
Great.
Good.
I hope all you guys had a great holiday weekend with your families. Busy weekend in the NFL, the last regular season week in the NFL. But let's talk about week 16 first. Start out with Jerry. What did you learn from week 16?
I mean, wow, like in a nutshell, I guess the people that we thought were going to be, you know, a lot of the teams that we thought were going to be in the playoffs. I mean, it's crazy how one week to the other, it all changes. I mean, now look at the NFC East for an example. Now we're talking about the Cowboys taking the division and clinching a playoff seat because of Washington's current state. I mean, I know Alex Smith. There's been some reports that he's been out in practice, but without a quarterback, obviously your team won't go very far, or even make it to the playoffs.
Sania.
I would say for me, there are three key storylines that stood out to me from by the end of week 16 and just looking at the duration of the season. One, you better show up when it counts. Two, injuries and COVID-19 matter. They matter way more than I think many people have given credit for in terms of the scope of even going into the playoffs. And then the last one is nothing's impossible. We've seen some blowouts this season. We've seen some crazy upsets this season. And ultimately, I think passion prevails in a lot of those blowouts and a lot of those upsets. And I think it's promising for next season.
Coach.
There's a lot of things that hit me. The Steelers still have fight in them. Obviously, the Bengals stringing 2 wins together. And as Sania just said, the COVID, how it affects teams differently. Just ask the Cleveland Browns about that. And the Packers and the Bills are for real.
Isaac.
Yeah, Sania was totally correct how you can't really predict anything. It is the NFL. Anything can happen. There are 5 AFC teams right now that are 10-5, and we could possibly see an 11-5 team miss the postseason. So that might be the Indianapolis Colts right now. They're the team on the outside looking in. They look like they had that game last week against Pittsburgh in the bag. They blew a 17-point third quarter lead, and that might come back to haunt them if they miss the postseason.
Kendall.
I think kind of like what Isaac said, it's going to be bad if the Colts, if they possibly can win 10 games and they miss the playoffs. Yeah, that's not going to be a good look. And then if you got a team in the NFC East, like the Cowboys or the Washington team that wins 5 or 6 or 7 games, they make the playoffs. So I think, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But, I'm pretty sure a lot of people like to see the Colts get in if they do win 10 or 11 games.
Yeah, what I learned is Buffalo's they are a real threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. They've just been playing some outstanding football. I know they played the Patriots, but still, you have to look at Josh Allen's performance against that Bill Belichick defense, and that's what really stood out to me. All right, so we are in the last week of the NFL regular season. With that being said, we still have injuries, and we still have COVID-19 going around the league, so let's check in with Sania.
Definitely still COVID-19 going around the league. But before I even get into it, I just wanted to acknowledge this hat situation. And that's because it's in the absence and the honor of Walter Stringer. I had to bring on a hat here for us. Okay. And you guys know what household I'm rocking. It's the only option I have to wear this hat. All right. So, but to get into these COVID and injury updates. So for COVID-19, the Saints, after a stellar performance last week with 6 touchdowns, the Saints will be without Alvin Kamara. And also, they're losing their running back room due to contact tracing. So that's Latavius Murray, that's Dwayne Washington, that's Michael Burton, all going to be on the contact tracing list right now. So they're on that COVID-19 list. Also, that team, there's still this team that originally is trying to take this NFC number 1 seed, but you have a banged up Drew Brees, and now you're relying on a wide receiver turn running back in Ty Montgomery possibly for this week. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see against the Panthers. Cooper Kupp is out for the Rams, also with COVID-19. Michael Brockers, I believe, was also added to that list. and the Browns. We already know the Browns have struggled the past 2 weeks with COVID-19. And this week, they had to close twice. The 2 consecutive days of closing their facility. And also star cornerback Denzel Ward, tight end Harrison Bryant, and linebacker Malcolm Smith are 3 players who tested positive for COVID-19. So that's going to be something that's definitely going to is definitely going to affect this Browns team as they go against the banged up Steelers. The Browns originally, probably before today, were walking into this game maybe thinking that they had it, but now you have big hits on both sides. Now, in terms of injuries, pulling up my injury chart right now. So for the Falcons, the Falcons, for the Falcons and the Buccaneers, the Falcons are going to be out of their cornerback, and Denard. They're going to be out of Julio Jones, the wide receiver. That hamstring is still a problem. For the Cowboys, they're not going to have Rashard Robinson with his knee injury. He's out. The Giants, they're doubtful in having Golden Tate back. Elijah Penny is out on an illness. And then for the New York Jets and the Patriots, the Jets, they have more of a questionable. They don't have any definite outs, but a questionable is Jeff Smith, the wide receiver there. And then the Patriots, they have their center in David Andrews. He's out. Running back Damian Harris with his ankle. Shaquille Mason, I'm sorry, with his calf injury. Now for the Vikings and the Detroit Lions, the Vikings will not have Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook's injury, we know, or not injury, I'm sorry, his absence is not injury related. It's due to the passing of his father, unfortunately. And they also will be missing their cornerback in Cameron Dantzler. He has a hamstring injury, and their defensive end in Jalen Holmes with a groin. Another cornerback is gone for the Vikings, and Chris Jones, their linebacker Eric Kendricks, and for the Lions, they're missing their tackle in Terrell Crosby, Joe Dahl, back injury, Kenny Galladay, hip. Now for I kind of already got into who will be missing in terms of COVID for the Steelers and the Browns. But the Steelers are also missing their kicker and Chris Boswell. Terrell Edmonds is out. Ben Roethlisberger, it's not injury related, but he will not be starting this game. TJ Watt will not be on this game. The Browns, they're missing their center and Nick Harris. Now, it's questionable whether or not they're going to have Tay Davis as a linebacker, whether they have Wyatt Teller. It's more looking Wyatt Teller more than likely be playing, but that's something that the Browns can look forward to having back. Now, moving on to the Ravens and Cincinnati. Cincinnati is going to be out of their center and BJ Finley. He has an abdomen injury. They're also cornerback William Jackson, who has a concussion, and linebacker Logan Wilson is also going to be out. The Ravens are more in the questionable area of, for example, Mark Ingram, illness there, Willie Snead, ankle, Jimmy Smith with his cornerback Jimmy Smith with his ribs and shoulders. So we'll have to kind of see. Those are more of those official game day releases for those injuries. But for the Dolphins and the Bills, the Dolphins will have a questionable situation in Devontae Parker, Solomon Kinley. And then for the Bills, they're official out in Cole Beasley after his injury last week. They also will not have Reggie Gillum and their tight end. Now for the Seahawks, they're going to be missing their running back in DJ Dallas. He has an ankle injury, and Jason Stanley with his hamstring. You got Carlos Hyde with on illness, and tight end Greg Olsen with a foot injury. And for the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, they needed him this week. He's not going to be in this game. This is that ankle injury that is getting to him, as well as Deebo Samuel, hamstring. For the Cardinals and the Rams, you have Jared Goff for the Rams. He is out. That right thumb is getting to him. And naturally, this is a super important game, especially for the Cardinals. But they're questionable with their safety, Buda Baker. And we've seen how he impacts this defense. And also, Larry Fitzgerald is on that questionable injury list as well. For Jaguars and the Colts, this will actually be an interesting game, considering that they're not planning on having their scores up for the players to see. So fans watching in the stadium, fans watching at home, of course, will be able to see the scores. But fans in the stadium will have to find alternative ways to keep up with the scores. Now, in terms of those injuries, the Colts, they're not going to have Will Holden. He's out. And the Jaguars are not going to have their wide receiver in DJ Chark or Colin Johnson, both out. Hamstring for Chark and hamstring for Johnson. Chark is with his shin. They also are going to be missing their running back in James Robinson. Now for the Titans and the Texans, any crazy absurd amounts of outs for either of those teams, mainly just questionables. And for the Raiders and the Broncos, the Raiders are not going to have Denzel Good, and the Broncos are not going to have their wide receiver in KJ Hamler. And for the Chiefs and the Chargers, so this is not an injury as to why Patrick Mahomes is not playing in this game, but I'm pretty sure you guys are surprised in the fact that Patrick Mahomes is not playing in this game. But of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be out. Tyreek Hill is going to be out. Sammy Watkins is also out. So the Chargers have a little bit of a upstream with some of their major starters being out. Questionable is still Le'Veon Bell on that list as well. Now for the Packers and Bears, David Bakhtiari is not playing in this game. That's going to be something big for the Packers as well as for the Bears. Jalen Johnson, that corner, Buster Skrine is also going to be out of this game. So there are going to be some open positions that have to be filled in a big way in order for either of these teams to, well, especially for the Bears, unfortunately, especially for the Bears to really tackle on this matchup. And that pretty much wraps up my injury update. That is brought to you by Lambs of God Design. So you guys make sure you use that promo code EastWest at lambsofgod.faith and get 10% off your order.
All right. Thank you so much, Sania.
Yep.
The following teams have a win-in playoff scenarios today: Browns, Ravens, Dolphins, Titans, Cardinals, Rams, Bears, Washington football team. A Washington football team lost gets the winner of the Dallas Cowboys or New York Giants in. So that's what a lot of teams are playing for, is a playoff spot today in week 17. All right, so we know that tomorrow's Black Monday. That's usually when a lot of changes happen with general managers and head coaches. What team should consider making a coaching change after the season? Let's start off with Jerry.
Man, you know what? I think it goes above the just the coach in this one that I'm going to call out, but I'm going to say the Chicago Bears. They need to get rid of both the general manager and the head coach. For you to think that Mitchell Trubisky is the answer, you're giving your fans the wrong message. So long term, if you want to help your franchise out, start new, and hey man, make a wrong a right by getting the right coach in place.
Let me ask you this, Jerry. If they do make the playoffs, do you still feel like they should let go of Nagy and Ryan Pace?
Oh yeah, because they're gonna keep on doing this to their fans, to the city. They're gonna bring on Mitchell Trubisky again. I mean, so it's one of those things where you're rooting for your team to win, but dang, I mean, it's like, do you really want to root for them to win right now? And then they're not gonna go to the Super Bowl. And then you know what? Oh, good luck, they made the playoffs. Let's bring them back. Well, let's go ahead and keep them. Let's go ahead and keep them on. And what's his answer? Mitchell Trubisky. Why? Because people in the NFL, they hate to admit when they're wrong.
Thank you, Jerry. Or I'm sorry, Sania.
I think I second that in the fact that all right, we get to the playoffs, cool. But at the end of the day, you also got to think about the long term. You got to think about the stretch. You got to think about the offensive coordinators and what they're doing for this offense, because we know this offense has struggled. So bringing in a coaching system, and I say system meaning multiple people, bringing in a coaching system that would allow these wide receivers to really feel like, okay, they can be trusted. They know they're going to be put in a good position to be successful. Bringing in an offensive coordinator that's going to help develop the quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky is not necessarily the answer. I think he's a great start, a great backup option, but that doesn't mean that because we were able to get this close to the playoffs that we settle. And I think the Bears have a problem with settling. I would also put up that another potential move that Houston should possibly make is in their defensive coordinator. And in their defense right now is really struggling. I can talk a little bit later about just how Deshaun Watson is finally starting to do what he's getting paid to do. But their defense, I think, is a struggling part of this team. JJ Watt is already, kind of spilled on how he feels Houston needs to be doing better. So those are my two areas of change.
Thank you, Coach.
Well, I think everybody would say these two are very obvious. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Jets. I think both of those situations are very open right now. I think there's reports saying that they're going to move on. But I think that's where the biggest change should be made with those teams. Those teams have been struggling, have struggled. And it's hard for me to even talk about coaching changes because I've been through it. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
We never know what's on the other side of that or what's happening in the organization. But I think those are the two other jobs that are out there that needs to be changed.
Isaac.
Yeah, Jerry and Sania already talked about, my Bears that I wanted to bring up. We can't ignore that this team went on a 6-game losing streak earlier in the year. And yeah, the offense looks a lot better right now. Trubisky looks better, but you got to think about who they're playing. They played the Lions, the Vikings, the Texans, and the Jaguars. Bottom half defenses in this league. Now, I give Nagy and the team credit for, turning around and, they have a lot more emotion right now. But, Nagy made a huge mistake at quarterback earlier on in the year. I wasn't against, benching Trubisky in that Falcons game. I wasn't against, him starting Nick Foles the couple games after that. But he obviously kept Nick Foles in there way too long. And it also didn't take a genius to know that this team would run a lot better with Trubisky in as their signal caller. Once Trubisky came back, David Montgomery exploded. We've seen big changes. If they make it in, I think that, unfortunately, Nagy will stay. I wouldn't really agree with it. But, they are playing the Packers today. If they get blown out, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go either.
And if I could add to that real quick, I also think that Nagy will stay if they make it into the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, I'm wearing this hat and I'm bear down. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be oblivious to the problems that we have on our offense. And our defense has done some pretty exceptional things this season. And so just the fact that Nagy being in this position, not to say that he's not a good coach. I just don't think he's a good coach for the system. And you can't rely on who you like. We already know, and Coach K, I'm sure can attest to it. You can't keep the coach that you like just because you like him. You have to keep the coach that's going to allow your team to thrive and be successful, especially when it comes down to the wire when you're in this playoff caliber position that you shouldn't be sitting in this position constantly of, are we going to make it to the playoffs? Are we not going to make it to the playoffs? We're waiting for the Cardinals to lose.
I agree.
Yeah, great minds think alike because I have the Chicago Bears as well. I just think if they do make the playoffs, they are going to keep their jobs, but you have to look at their body of work to say, right? So with drafting, the biggest thing to me was the Khalil Mack trade that they made. That's probably one of the best moves they did make, even though it did cost them a lot of draft capital. But yeah, I think the Chicago, there needs to be a change there. Now, with that being said, best available NFL coaching job that's open right now. Start with Jerry.
I hate to say this, but I don't hate to say it, but when you look at it like head to toe, Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have the key pieces in all the right places, and whatever coaching staff lands there, they're gonna be excited because they got the number 1 pick, they got the accord, even I see it, the next Peyton Manning, pretty much, but I say it respectively. And a more athletic version of him too. So when you look at it, Jacksonville, they got key pieces on the offensive line. They got a very talented wide receiver, actually dual actually, and then look at the promising defensive ends and corners. So when you look at it right now, Jacksonville Jaguars, as much as nobody really wants to go to that city, I don't know why, if it's the biggest city in Florida, but Jacksonville it is.
Scenario.
I agree. Jacksonville Jaguars. And right now, we've heard multiple reports of them leaning towards Urban Meyer. Ryan Day has been in the conversation. I think Ryan Day has something to offer here. And I know, Fidel, you and I have talked about it. I think Ryan Day has something to offer here, considering that he just led a team to beating Trevor Lawrence. So he can spot potentially Trevor Lawrence's weaknesses. So if he then acquires him as his starting QB, then you have the ability to help him adjust, help him learn, help him get into this team and this franchise, and hopefully be successful. So I would say the Jaguars spot is that number one spot right now.
And then 2 number 1 picks too.
Yeah, Coach.
Okay, Jerry and Sania, I can't go there yet because it's not open.
Mm.
That job is not open. He asked for a question. The job that is open.
Very true.
Oh,
Very true.
Already those coaches out and
fact
put them
check.
on the street. Okay, that's hard. The best job that I think's open right now, and it's because of the quarterback. I think it's Houston.
Oh wow.
Deshaun Watson. Am I concerned because they're giving away a lot of draft capital? There's a defense that needs to be retooled. Yes. So then people would think, well, Detroit, because that's the next best situation because they have draft capital. They're going to have ability to move assets to acquire more players as they move forward. So when you look at it, it's the quarterback, and then it's what can you put around the quarterback to help him become better, which helps the organization, the football team become better. So I know, you're talking about 3 teams with openings, Houston, Atlanta, Detroit, and they all need coaches and GMs. And that's going to be the other pairing, is the coach with the GM. How will that marry up to make those particular jobs the best they can be? I think that's a huge question as we head into this Black Monday, as they call it, or whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why coach is a coach.
I mean, yeah, he fact checked us, but still, I mean,
I love you both. I love you both, though. But
all love, of
I feel
course.
bad
Fact
for
check
my
me.
brother.
Let me know.
Coach, the writing's on the wall, man.
Maybe you got high school. We're out of here.
You're bringing Trevor Lawrence in.
Look.
I'm pretty sure Trevor doesn't want to see that.
Look,
that
Coach.
wrong.
I think we're just excited, man. This year has been, whew.
It has been. Yes, it has.
All right, Isaac. What do you think?
Yeah, Houston just scares me. I was going to bring up the Detroit Lions as well. Like Coach said, draft capital. They got some good young core players. If they can keep Kenny Galladay, the core offensive players of Galladay, Hawkinson, and DeAndre Swift, they're going to have a top 10 pick in this year's draft. They could possibly go out and get a Zach Wilson type at quarterback. And on defense, they just drafted Jeff Okudah. They have other veteran players on that defensive side, and Trey Flowers and Jamie Collins. So I think that would be the best open head coaching spot right now, in my opinion.
What about the Atlanta Falcons? I think you still can get a couple of years out of Matt Ryan. They have a young stud wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. Hayden Hurst is an emerging tight end. I think that team, if they get the right coach in place and make a couple of moves in the draft, of course, and in the free agency, we can see this thing turn around pretty quick. All right, we got Lamar Wallace is watching. He's like, I think the Jets, they have the draft capital that's crazy. Get some get some great young talent and get the chance to mold your team. All right, thank you for interacting, Lamar. But yeah, I think the Atlanta Falcons might be the best opening as of right now. Now, we know today after some games there might be some more openings, but that's what we have right now. All right, so we have a couple of future Hall of Fame quarterbacks that might be seeing their last action today or either in the playoffs with Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers. Now, Phillip Rivers might not make the playoffs for that collapse last week in Pittsburgh against the Steelers. Drew Brees, we know, is going to make the playoffs. But my question is, are we going to see 2 of these quarterbacks retire after the year? Set up with Jerry.
Wow. I think that, to me, I mean, it's kind of one of those gut feelings, but I think for sure Drew Brees, I think Phillip Rivers is going to kind of mull it over a little bit more. His will drag on, though. But Drew Brees I think he's going to go right into the booth.
Sania.
Yeah, I say Drew Brees is going to go down fighting. I don't see, because we know he loves the game. We know he loves this team, but I think this is a family future decision. It's not necessarily like he's young and he's like thinking about the longevity of his career. He's accomplished that already. And right now it's most about keeping him healthy for the enjoyment of the rest of his life. And I think also, well, I know for a fact, according to Adam Scheffner, Drew Brees is already has a broadcast job lined up. So we'll have to see how that finishes playing out. Now, in terms of Phillip Rivers, no, I think he's definitely going to fight for another season at minimum. And I say that because right now the Colts did things that we didn't really expect the Colts to do this season. And so I think you might feel encouraged by that and want to, give it another go.
Coach.
I think both of these guys will have a hard time walking away because football's been their life. And but at the same time, I think the organizations understand that they have to put other people in place so that they can start trending forward. Because both of these guys are older players, very good players in the league, done some outstanding things, but it's time to move on. And that's very obvious. I think the injuries with Drew will show itself out and potentially could be worse next year. I think Phillip, we've been saying that there's a chance that Carson Wentz could end up in Indy. So that's going to be a real decision because they can let that money go and pick up a young player, and have the money to pay him. So I think both these guys are at the end of it. I think we all know that, but I don't think either one of them will be playing in the National Football League next year.
Isaac.
If I had to pick one that would be in the NFL next year, it would be Phillip Rivers. We've already talked about it. He's not a guy that wants to quit. Neither of them want to stop playing. I think Drew had it in his mind that he was going to chase records with Tom Brady for the rest of time. But, we've seen the regression in his play. We've seen the injuries hit him. I definitely think that it is Drew Brees' last season. And Sania and Jerry are right about Phillip Rivers. He's going to try to play another season. And that all depends on which team is willing to take a chance on him going into his 18th year.
Yeah, I think Drew Brees is probably going to retire after the year. He already has a contract with NBC Sports. I think the plan for him is to replace Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico and him go do Sunday Night Football. Now, with that being said, I'm going to say it depends how the Saints lose in the playoffs, if they lose. We've seen this team lose a lot of heartbreaking games before. So honestly, he might come back. I know it sounds crazy. He's 41 years old and he's had all these injuries, but I think depending if they lose in the playoffs and how they lose, we might see him again next year. Now with Phillip Rivers, he's 39 years old. The biggest question to me is what are the Colts going to do with the quarterback situation, right? Do you guys see another team that would be interested in Phillip Rivers if the Colts don't bring him back?
Oof,
I just have to fall out.
on this one, I think everybody's gonna be. I think that'll be the last, the last choice kind of deal. And when you're the last choice kind of deal, that's when you just hang it up yourself. You know what I mean?
Let's be honest. The guy can't move anymore.
You can't, no.
He can't. You can't. He's a standing statue, and for his own health, And I understand he's made a lot of money, but I get it. He has a lot of kids, and you need to make as much money as you can.
And then also, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be a coach too at a high school.
Yep.
After he retires in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got 9 kids. He's got a lot of things to look forward to after football. So
hey, he said he's got to pay this college tuition now. You're not getting any aid.
Hey, very true. All right, Lamar Wallace, both Brees and Rivers' final season. Rivers is a statue in the pocket. Brees seems ready to transition to the broadcast booth. Good points. Excellent points. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Sania with our question of the week presented by Thrive Fantasy.
Yes, make sure you guys check out the Thrive Fantasy app. It is the official fantasy app of East West Football Network. But for the question this week, it's kind of a fill in the blank situation. All right. So blank team will make the playoffs next year if they fix blank. So what team will make the playoffs next year if they fix X thing, right? And I guess we can still go round table with this, and I'll come back to my answer. But Jerry, do you want to start off, or Fidel, you want to start off?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay. Well, so I guess the there's so many teams that we could just choose from, but I guess I could go ahead and just stay home, right? Um, Cowboys can make it to the playoffs next year if they can stay healthy. Number one, right? Stay healthy. Number one, and man, what was the second part? Adding what?
If they fix,
Oh
what
yeah.
do they need to fix in order to stay healthy?
If
And
they can if they can fix that defense, if they can shore up that defensive line, or maybe get an actual if not a defensive line, get yourself a linebacker that could stay healthy, or is going to do his job in stopping the run, right? Because that's the one thing that we see. So I would say I'm gonna stay home and say Cowboys to be a staple actually, and be very dominant in the NFC East if they just fix that defense up.
And if I could add a follow up question to that, and this is pertaining to coach in terms of what Jerry said, what is, in coach, in your experience, seeing an injury like Dak Prescott's, what is the likelihood that he'll be able to come back and lead this team to a potential playoff run that Jerry says is possible?
I think there's a good chance. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of quarterbacks that's been injured and have some significant injuries return to form and play at a high level. And he's still a young man, a lot of football ahead of him. I think his diagnosis sounds like it's right on pace, or he's ahead of it. So I think he can do it.
And Kellen Moore just signed an extension, so I'm pretty sure that means that they already assured him they're going to sign Dak Prescott to a long-term contract too. So future looks bright for the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, coach, who is your this team will make it to the playoffs if they next year if they fix?
Okay, you guys ready for this? If we can get Joe
Oh.
Burrow healthy and we get better offensive line play, the Cincinnati Bengals will be in the hunt for the playoffs next year.
I like that.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to say, when we're doing our coaching hot seat, I was going to say that the Bengals head coach was kind of like, to me, I was like, I don't know, man, that Sean McVay experience is not really working in Cincinnati, but I think you're right, the old coach. You get the right offensive line, Joe Burrow could get the job done for you, make you look good in the process too.
Isaac, what about you?
I think the Minnesota Vikings will make it back to the playoffs if they fix their defense. They have one of the most electrifying offenses in the league. The wide receiver duo in Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson might be the top duo in this league. They obviously have Dalvin Cook, so they have the weapons around. But their defense finished 26th in total yards allowed, 28th in points allowed. So as long as they can sharpen up that defense, I mean, they can surround that really good offense and make it back into the postseason.
All right, I'm going to throw mine in real quick, and I'm going to say the Texans will make the playoffs next year if they fix their defense. They started out shaky, but like I said, Deshaun Watson is now doing what the Texans paid him to do, and part of that starting out shaky was not having the eligible receivers who can really catch his balls and the offensive line to protect him at the beginning of the season. Plus, Watson has thrown over 4,400 yards, passing yards this season. Braden Cook is less than 20 yards away from a 1,000 yard receiving season. So then, like I said, JJ Watt, he already had that monologue, if I can call it, where he clearly was calling out players for not putting in their time, not putting in their work. We already know that the defense is strongest with Zach Cunningham and Adams. They're their best defenders right now, but the secondary needs help. So if the defensive line can figure this out, if the defensive coordinator can figure it out, then I think the Texans can have an option.
And I'm going to go the Colts will make the playoffs because it doesn't look like they're going to make it this year if they call Andrew Luck and get him out of retirement, or the next big thing, trade for Carson Wentz. So that's my team. If they make those moves, they'll make the playoffs next year.
Man, but Carson Wentz going to have to see some psychiatrist, get his psyche back in. Like that guy is broken. I'm sorry, man.
And but I think Frank Reich can help him out, and I think he could. The best thing for Wentz is to get out of Philly, fresh new start,
change of scenery.
Exactly, and what better place than Indianapolis with the familiar face,
And I think Wentz needs somebody to believe in him again.
Yep, familiar face, play indoors, all that would really help them.
All right. Now it's time for our bold predictions for Week 17 in the NFL. Start off with Jerry. What is your bold prediction for today?
Oof. The Washington football team wins and disappoints many NFC East fans.
Tania.
You guys may be wondering if I'm going to choose between the Packers and the Bears. I am not, but I will say the Seahawks get the dub over the 49ers.
Coach.
My bold prediction is
Drum roll.
Chicago Bears is going to upset the Packers at home.
That's bold.
I hope so.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, Bears. Don't do
And
it.
you were in the I'm praying too. I'm gonna pray them play. I'm gonna pray them play too.
Don't do
Yep.
it, Bears. Don't do it. Long
Isaac.
term. Long term.
I think even though the Pittsburgh Steelers are resting some of their players, they are going to ruin the Cleveland Browns' playoff hopes and bury their AFC North rival by 10 points today, kicking them out of the postseason.
Ooh, spicy.
Bold.
What matchup sounds more nice? Tampa at Washington or Tampa at Dallas? I'd say Tampa at Dallas.
And there's
Jared Stidham starts and throws for 4 touchdowns against the Jets. Would that be saying anything? I don't think it's going to happen, but
no, I think the Jets are actually going to come away with their the third win?
Yeah, third.
Yeah.
Third win, yeah.
Now let's go back to Lamar Wallace. I hate to say it, as a Chiefs fan, Raiders will make the playoffs if they fix that Swiss cheese defense. Perhaps that's a lot, though. That's a lot to ask for.
But if you look at the common denominator with all the teams that we mentioned, they're all defense.
Yeah.
So,
Defense wins games. Isn't that the old saying?
Yep. Defense wins championships.
My bold prediction for today: Tua leads Miami
Mm,
to a win over Buffalo to get into the postseason.
that's
That is my
a
bold
good bold.
That is a good bowl. That's tough as hell.
That would help out his mental health. Being benched 3 times this season, and then without Fitzpatrick today, and doing it all himself, that would help him tremendously.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have another option. They don't have another pitcher in the bullpen, so to say. Right? It's going to be Tua. It's going to be the Tua show today. All right, lock to win. Start out with Jerry.
Dallas Cowboys.
Sania.
Baltimore over Cincinnati.
Coach.
Titans beat the Texans.
Isaac.
John Wolford and the LA Rams beat the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes. Sorry.
That's going to be tough. All right, Browns to beat the Steelers. That is my lock to win. All right, and now it's that time of the show where we hear who Coach is giving his advice to out this week. Coach, there's a lot of people that need some advice out there. Who are you giving it to this week?
You just said it, Fidel. I'm giving it to every team that's got a chance to lock down a playoff seed, that they need to go play the best football, that they have to understand in these situations, the other teams want to play the spoiler. There's nothing better than walking out of a locker room knowing that you knocked somebody out of the playoffs. And so those teams that have an opportunity, you take the Browns, for instance, who hadn't been to the playoffs in a long time. If you don't nail this down, it could hurt your organization for years to come. It really can, because it is devastating to be one game close to getting in and not being able to get there. So all those teams, my advice to you is make sure your game plan's tight, make sure your players understand the moment, and go find a way to win.
All right.
Now, Coach,
Coach.
If I can ask, is there a different sense of devastation? I'm not completely satisfied with how I'm asking this question, but is there a different sense of devastation considering that this season has been played in a pandemic versus a normal looking season?
I don't think so, because of the magnitude of the final game. Obviously, everybody's been through so much, but you're here now. And so you got a chance on this particular day to really just cement something in your organization that we were able to overcome it and still find a way to win. And those teams that don't make it because they get knocked out, that's on their head now for a while. And it starts influencing decisions that you have to make in the offseason. So I would be really concerned that the teams who are favored to win these games if they don't, it could be really hard on them.
I think we had a question, right? That would
El
make
compa Tony.
they
Hey, what's going on, Tony? Thank you for watching.
So to answer his question, I think the Bears would punch in the 7th seed, so that automatically they would face off the 2nd seed, which is right now currently standing the
New
Saints.
Orleans. Yep.
Yeah. So that would be the matchup.
That's not a matchup you want.
No.
Right?
Nope, especially in the farewell
I'll,
tour.
I'll take it though.
I'll take it. True. I'll take it. Shoot. I'll be sitting on my couch, maybe crying a little bit, but it's fine. I'll take it.
Lamar Wallace wish the Chiefs would play some starters. Otherwise, almost 3 weeks off till the playoff game.
Yeah, think about the future, man. Super Bowl back to back.
And
Yeah,
also
we
too,
have-
these starters who are out have had, like Sammy Watkins had health issues throughout the season. So I think it's understandable that they're sitting out, and Andy Reid knows what he's doing with this offense for sure. But in terms of the entertainment of the game, I would like to see some more starters as well.
When was the last time? What year was the last back to back? Wasn't it with the Patriots?
Patriots, yeah.
Back
Mhm.
in-
2003, 2004.
yeah.
My-
So
my
it's been a while.
And we never, I hadn't heard it. Maybe that was me, but the Kansas City Chiefs, when do they get their 2 tackles back, or are they back?
I think you'll get one of them back divisional round. I'm not too sure about the other one.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference in them winning the Super Bowl again.
Hey, he says Sammy.
Sammy's always right.
Clutch last year for you guys when you guys really
Yeah,
needed
he stepped up.
it. You did.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we end the show today?
I'll go first. I mean, I just want to say thank you to everybody, especially Coach Hugh Jackson. Thank you so much for making this regular season so much fun. What a year, right? It kind of just flew by on us and just like a snap of a fingers. But just continue prayers and positive vibes. Everybody stay healthy. Health, wealth, and success to everybody that's helped us and anybody that hasn't. So.
Yeah. Also, thank you to the guys. Thank you, Coach. It's been an honor to be a part of this panel and a part of this team. We'll see what these playoffs look like. I think it's going to be one of the most interesting playoff series we've ever seen in football history, considering everything that's gone on. So, with that being said, also thank you to everybody viewing.
I want to say thank you to the East West Podcast team, Fidel, for calling me and inviting me to be a part of this. It's been outstanding. You guys are very knowledgeable, you're professional, you work at it. People don't understand that you guys put a lot into it. There's a lot of information out there, and you guys go and search and dig and pull to make sure you have it. And to me, that's what pros do. And you guys are pros at what you do. There's no question. And I hope you guys keep scaling this podcast because you guys are one of the best that is out there.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that. Lamar Wallace, great show. Keep up the good work, East West crew. We appreciate you watching, Lamar, and thank you very much. Also, quick announcement: playoffs do start next week with some huge wild card games. You can catch us on Saturday as well, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be covering the wild card games for Saturday, and then also on Sunday. With that being said, thank you everyone out there for watching. Again, Happy New Year. Enjoy the games.